Those of you just joining, we'll be getting started here in a second. Sorry I started there a little bit late. Still trying to get some stuff together, but we'll be starting here shortly. The live chat is up on the YouTube link, and you can also join the discussion through the Zcast weather page as well. So we'll get started here in just a minute. Nice name. Defcon Weenie. Weenie has been hurting this winter, that's for sure. For those of you that don't know what a weenie is, it's people that wish for snow, even in the worst conditions possible. They always hold on to hope. So this has been a tough one for those people. That's for sure. And those people just joining here, give me just a minute or two, let people load in. We'll get started here momentarily. To everyone else, again, that's just joining. You can join the chat on the YouTube link there, or even on the Zcast weather page. Yep. Judy, a lot of people want to bring the snow after this little bit unusual winter. I guess what I can talk about here before we get into the thick of it is, this has been a strange winter in terms of lack of snow. I wouldn't say it's, necessarily strange for us not to get snow. There have been several winters where we being Nova and DC, have had south of an inch of snow. The last time that happened was in 2011 and 12 winter, where we actually got more snow in, I believe it was Halloween of 2011 than we did the whole winter. That's when Sandy hit over that weekend. So, just very snowless winter, but the setup has not been good at all as far as a lot of the blocking that's needed for mid-Atlantic storms. The southern flow has been real this year in terms of a lot of these lows dipping down into the Carolinas versus making their way up through the mid-Atlantic, or we've just been too warm. And I will get into the wave one. I know someone's asking that question now, but let me go ahead and get started with this because we're about 5 minutes in. So first off, thank you for joining. If you haven't joined before, welcome. If you have joined before, it's been a long time coming as far as getting into one of these and really breaking down a storm, which is what I like to do. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the section in the YouTube stream below, also on Zcast Weather. I'll get to those at the end of the presentation. That way I have a chance to go over things and it might actually answer those questions. But so here we are coming into tonight, into tomorrow, which there'll be a little bit of a system that passes through, and we'll talk about that at the end. But this is to really talk about the three waves that are coming. The wave one is tonight, which is really kind of a non-issue, might cause some issues, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Wave two is going to go south of us, pretty much down through eastern Tennessee into North Carolina. And the third wave is what you're here for tonight, which is the Monday night into Tuesday AM event. And that's what you're looking at right here on the screen here. I'll zoom in for you guys. You can see here, this is the low pressure that's right off the Delmarva that's going to be bringing the moisture, kind of a setup where you don't want the low pressure too close to the coast, right? Let me zoom in or fast forward a little bit there. But the low pressure, as you can see, actually comes off the coast of South Carolina, which not exactly confident that that's going to be that far south. I think it's really going to be more in this area. And actually, the GFS, if I go to a previous run, had that idea that it was going to be further north. I think it's going to be closer to that. Definitely have to look at that and see here. The 3 runs ago, it was way out to sea. But the current run where we are now, just to make sure here, sorry. Yeah, is showing that low pressure center a little further south than you normally would see for a system like this. So I'm not exactly convinced the GFS solution is correct in the capture of the low and how far low it goes. But it does, as you can see here, hug it right up the coast and turn it into there's a debate right now between the Miller A and Miller B solution. To me, it's a nor'easter. That's what I'm going to call it. It's going to be called a nor'easter, and it's pretty much what it looks like. That's what it's going to be. The question is going to be, how close is it to the Delmarva, and how close is it all the way over towards the Virginia coast? Because the closer it is, the warmer it will be, and areas like DC, I-95, maybe even points just a little bit west of that, like near, I would say, Tyson's Corner area, would see a lot of mixing if that low were to come in a little further. If it stays where it is currently, it's going to be a solid paste job. I say paste because this is a very heavy wet snow that would come in, anywhere in the range of 8 to 12 inches for the Northern Virginia area. But we won't get into totals yet. Let's talk about evolution of the storm. So this right here would be Tuesday morning, probably about 8 a.m. And you can see you have the low right off the coast here. And what's this feature over here? Oh, it's another low pressure center. Double barrel low. Typically, when you see systems like this, intense snowfall rates, and it also can lead to a deformation band towards the end of the event that kind of sweeps through the area like one more quick hit of snow. We saw that same feature with Jonas last year. This will not be Jonas, just using this as an example, so let's not jump the shark there, but that feature will be available for the system that moves through. So that's something to consider. Now, I'm going to go over and look at the Euro. I want to show you this slide here. See, the Euro, it has its low pressure center here, just off the coast of North Carolina. Now, low positioning this season for models, the GFS has been poor. It's typically had a southern bias as to where that low pressure center is going to present itself. So I think this is more accurate. The reason that it might be a little bit troublesome is the temperature. So I'm going to look here real quick, and we can show you this. So you can see here, it's a pretty strong system, 980 millibars, and that's getting into the territory talking about high winds, the possibility of a blizzard up towards the northeast if it stays close enough, and it begins to phase and bomb out. That's definitely a possibility. So I just want to show you the intensity of the low is unquestionably going to be pretty strong. This is all about temperatures, and we'll get into that in a little bit more here. So the next thing I want to show you here is, this is from the European Ensemble, and it kind of gives you an idea of where the intensity of the storm will be in relation to the East Coast. And you can see here, as it moves further up, it is going to start to affect the Northeast states. And then the latest model runs have shown that not only is it going to get the mid-Atlantic, but it's going to make its way up towards Northeast as well. And that concerns me a little bit for those that want the snow, because we're talking about a system that is typically a Northeast event if it pans out this way, not so much a mid-Atlantic event. Doesn't mean we wouldn't get snow. It just means we wouldn't see the totals in that 10 to 12 inch range. So just something to consider. There will be no shortage of moisture for the system, though. And typically with snow, when you talk the mid-Atlantic, it's number one is where's the QPF, that amount of precipitation. Number two, temps, and the rest will follow. There's going to be plenty of moisture. In some parts here, you can see over an inch of moisture. That will be through. So if you use the standard model of ratios, 1 inch of rain, or I'm sorry, 1 inch of moisture converts to roughly a foot of snow, 0.75, roughly 10 inches. So you get that idea where the models are getting some of these totals from. So there'll be no shortage of moisture. And this was the GFS run from this evening, which went bonkers, especially for eastern Pennsylvania into New Jersey. I mean, we're talking about some areas that are 25 inches, but not convinced that we're going to see this much snow for this event, and I'll talk a little bit as to why. First off, these are weather-bell maps, and they tend to be a little more juiced than they should be. A good rule of thumb is to take about 60% of the number that's up here when it comes to these crazy quantities, and that's probably closer to your number. For example, with Jonas, when we actually got 30 inches of snow in our area, it showed like nearly 50 on some of the weather belt maps. So you can see here, though, the GFS has its eyes on a pretty significant event. And we'll move on to the next here. This is the ensemble mean with 10 to 1 ratios. And you can see out of 20 runs, there are many members here with significant snowfall. But do you see a trend? You see here, look, we got cutoff. Got the I-95 cutoff here. That would be just really crappy for a lot of people, that one. Here's the cutoff, here's the cutoff. Not so much here. A couple members where not much at all is happening. One member that completely cuts out the snow hole that is DC this this winter. But you can see a trend. And the trend is that there is going to be a sharp gradient between the west and east. And this is very typical for anybody that has lived here long enough and has followed me or any other person that does weather, that sharp gradient along I-95 it happens with some of these larger systems. And we're talking about temperatures, and we're fighting to keep those freezing temperatures. I think west of Fairfax will have no problem with that. I think the mixing and whatnot is really going to start somewhere in, that Tyson's Corner and east area. So it's a little bit too far out to be talking about these exact features, but being where it's just now Thursday, and this is a late Monday night, early Tuesday event. But the fact that the GFS and the European are seeing the same thing, as well as the CMC, UK Met, those are things to consider. That this is seeing a significant signal. But I really do think we're going to see a sharp cutoff due to temps. And as we get closer to the event, we'll talk more about that. Next thing I want to show you is one of my favorite models of Navgen. Here's the thing. This guy, if this were to verify, we would bomb out as far as snow is concerned in the mid-Atlantic. That you can't really see the contour, but it's showing the freezing line right about here. So I think it's a little liberal with the freezing line. I think it's a little too far east. I think it would be more in this region versus here. But if this were to verify where it would then phase off of the coast, right, the low pressure center here, and then it would begin to bomb out over the east coast and move its way up, this would be a significant snow for any month, but for March, probably record breaking. So that's another model that's seeing this evolution. And the last thing that I really want to go over here real quick in terms of on screen is this, the CMC. Now, here's why I'm bringing up the CMC. This Canadian model sniffed out 3 things pretty early on with what we're dealing with currently. The first thing it sniffed out was that this first wave coming in, which is coming in through late tonight into tomorrow, was going to be mainly north of us. It was the first model to say that. Then it was the first model to say that wave 2, which is coming in Sunday, will not actually be going over the mid-Atlantic like many of the models earlier thought, but that it was going to come south. It was the first one to say that it was going to go over North Carolina. And lo and behold, the CMC was one of the first as well to point out that the mid-Atlantic for the third wave, which is what we've been talking about, is going to actually make its way across the mid-Atlantic region with snow, while the other models kind of lagged. So it's my opinion that the CMC understands these 3 fronts, or has been ahead of them just based on observation. So we should really put some stock into it. And it's done pretty well with some other systems as well. But these 3 phases, or sorry, these 3 waves, it's done very well with. So let's animate it and kind of talk about it for a second here. So what I want you to look at, and we'll scroll down, is this is tonight's event. You can see that it's mainly going to be rain, and then we're going to get some mixing and snow, right? Let me see if I can get in a little bit closer here, sorry. And then this is the wave 2, which is coming out here from the Midwest, and it's going to make its way here across Missouri, just into western Tennessee and then eastern Tennessee. And you can see here that it really kind of shears out. It doesn't do too much in the mid-Atlantic at all, even in southern Virginia. But then our system, the one we've been talking about, the low comes off the coast here, it makes its way up, and you can see kind of that tilt, how it kind of tilts. And we can go back here a second and show you. Let me refresh it. That's probably better. Okay, we're gonna let this play out for a second. So we'll animate it again, but this is tonight's event, moving its way across Virginia, and again, there's just some mixing, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. Wave 2 comes down, significant cold air coming to the area. Pretty much Tennessee's going to be the benefactor of that system, and it shears out pretty quickly though. But here's what I want you to look at, and I want to pause it before it gets too no. There we go. Okay, so that low pressure center is sitting right here between South Carolina and North Carolina border. And watch its evolution. Let me slow down the speed here, animate it. And you can see as it makes its way up the coast, again, here's the low pressure center, it begins to tilt, right? The whole system like rotates its way over the Northern Virginia area. That is the phasing that we're looking for in terms of higher snow totals at that 10 to 12, 15 range if we were to get there, if all the conditions were perfect. The CMC is the one that's saying this now within about 4.5 days of the event actually happening. Again, here's that evolution. It comes right up the coast, and boom, you get some of that phasing right off, and see that deformation band comes there at the end, that little bit of extra snow. So look, that's, if you look at it, that's the GFS, that's the European, which, real quick, we need to show you that. And here's the latest European, which I just blacked out the whole screen there, but you can see here, look at that sharp cutoff. All right, we're talking about no snow if you're in the northern neck to nearly a foot if you are in Leesburg and west. Right, so a very tight gradient, something that I'm pretty positive at this point will come into play. The question's only pretty much at this going to be temperatures. Where will they be when this event starts to occur? Will we get enough cold air damming? That's where cold air is basically wedged in to the mid-Atlantic area between the Blue Ridges and the ocean. How much can sustain there? And once the system gets going, where will that low pressure center be? Because if that low pressure center, pull this up here real quick. Oh, which one was it? I keep forgetting. Here we go. That low pressure center is here and then makes its way up like so, like the CMC says, then we're going to see a lot of snow throughout the Northern Virginia region, including DC. But if that low decides it wants to creep up the coast and go off this way, which the GFS was hinting at a little bit, then that cuts down totals. That snow rain line, snow line, sorry, makes its way further west. Maybe DC gets fringed. So that's all I really got for right now. I'm going to continue to look at this, but out of my observations, what I have seen so far, this is probably the best chance we're going to have this winter for sure to have any snow. We've had some close calls, but I think those are around that 7 to 6 day mark. We're within the 5 day mark now. So now it's simply going to be, how much are we going to get? Do we get an inch? Do we get a foot? Again, it all comes down to where that rain snow line is with temperatures, how close that low pressure center, where it evolves, and of course, making sure that there's no, soft, what do you call it, curveballs that come out of nowhere. I don't see that with this setup because we have the CMC, the Euro, the GFS, the UKMet, all seeing roughly the same system. All right, guys, I'll open up to questions if you got any. Fire away. Do you want me to clarify any more on Wave 1? Wave 1, everybody, is tonight's snow. I really don't think there's going to be much of anything when it comes to tonight. The temperatures are just going to be so marginal. The ground temps are going to be way warm. I don't think it's going to be much of an issue for the commute. TV snow, basically. It'd be nice to look at it as it falls. That's what I see with Wave 1. No questions on Facebook? Oh, this might be an easy one. But I'll give it a second. You guys ask any questions? And again, guys, one thing I want to really point out before we go on this, the low, I went through every the low pressure centers, everything with this storm. Too close to the coast, we're going to see a lot of mix. A little bit further away, tucked away, that H5 capture, then we see the rates go up. One thing I want to really point out, East Central Pennsylvania, north of Philly. Tomorrow, so you're asking about you're going to have like 2 inches. I just really don't know how much of that stuff's going to stick. The further north you go, I think the more you'll see, and especially inland. But 1 to 2 inches for that area for Wave A. All right, guys. Well, hey, look, thanks for joining. If you have any questions, shoot them on my page if you missed it. It was fun doing this, and I'll keep you guys updated on the next system. Thank you guys very much, and you have a good one.